Since the conclusion of QE3, we have seen that the stock market hasn't really moved. And this goes to show you the importance of quantitative easing, also known as money printing, on the economy. And today we will discuss the preparation for QE4 as the global markets fall. You came here for the truth, so let me unveil that for you. Let's get into this right here. Bullard's most recent comments: could resume unconventional policy. There he is once again stating that they could very well start the QE once again. In fact, when he did say that they would do this again should they need to, he made a similar comment before, the market went up considerably despite the fact that the global economy was sinking. So let's get into this right here. I'm going to show you the global implications of what has been going on. Of course, I say QE4, but it's not just coming from the Federal Reserve. We're seeing what the ECB is going to do. We've seen what Japan is doing and all around the world. Let's get into this right now. There's so much to cover. First, I wanted to note this right here, that Russia's gold reserves continue to increase here. At the same time, they're selling off US Treasuries at a very high rate right now, going back to 2008 levels. So obviously they're diversifying out. Now, once again, I will say this, that this doesn't happen overnight, but it is a step in that direction. So we're going to move on really quickly here, and we'll look at Europe. This is very important to see. They proclaimed this recovery, if you can see that on this chart right here, and ever since they did that, it has just continued its decline. You can't just create these false ideologies and pretend that everything is okay when it very well is not. And just because that you say something is right doesn't mean that it is. And we can see everything is completely upside down. This chart happens to be Spain, Italy, and Germany, but you can see that throughout the whole Eurozone and all around the world, in fact. So this is what happens when you have a problem that is systemic and it is not just isolated to one country. Greek systemic banks request inclusion in the ELA. This is out of the Greek Reporter, but essentially what we have now, I just reported that 2 banks are basically looking for emergency funding from the central bank. Now it is all 4 of the major banks. So this is what happens when you have the bankers allowed to take over and take control of any particular nation. This is what happens when the IMF runs your nation, that you cannot sustain this. We're going to move on. This is very interesting. I talked about the Swiss National Bank removing its peg from the US dollar, and obviously it went up considerably in practically instantly. So this right here is suggesting the S&P had proclaimed loyalty to the peg just days before ending it. I'm not going to get into what happened with the S&P, but I will tell you right now that every single time you hear that everything is just fine, the markets are doing well, this is a recovery, the recession is over, it is in fact the exact opposite. How many times do we have to go through and see the exact same thing being said over and over again? Look, I showed you that chart about Europe, how they proclaimed recovery. At the same time, it is all on a decline. And the Federal Reserve is doing the same thing by using core inflation rates, which in fact are often rising, but regardless, we are looking at this right now. And I'll move on very quickly to connect this point with this here, that the next one to watch is the Hong Kong dollar. This is Simon Black suggesting this, and he said that right now the Hong Kong dollar is pegged to the US dollar. It says that this could definitely be the next one to watch for. It would be extremely important worldwide if they were to actually go ahead and remove their peg. This is going to really spell disaster for the US dollar as nations begin to move away from all of its power, slowly but surely. And this here is the CPI. You have bad government decisions that are occurring. It is resulting in the CPI index increasing in various indicators. Most importantly, we have food and electricity. Sure, some have gone down, absolutely, like gasoline for individuals, but you still have the food prices rising. It doesn't make any sense if transportation costs should be lower. You still have the food prices increasing, and this puts obviously a big damper into those individuals' real savings. So we're going to move on to this article here, this image here, where I show you what's happening in Venezuela. I hope you can see this, but essentially it's a massive lineup that is occurring right now for individuals needing every basic commodity. They need the toothpaste and toothbrushes and soap and detergent and every single thing. And what does the president say? He says that they need to, in fact, increase their socialism and increase everything that they're doing, because the policies that they have in place are not the problem. We have other problems here. That's what he suggests. Now, you could blame socialism. You could say it's something else. However, the absolute truth is that the policies they are putting in place are not working. And this is what I told the readers from the Money GPS, my book. I said that the Fed and the government were determined to keep the boom going indefinitely. However, it's clear that they policies were disrupted and distorted the markets and caused the worst downturn of the century. And I was referring to the Great Depression. And I said the Money GPS proves that these policies are always a failure. And that is an absolute truth. Historically, you can see it documented that every time the government sticks their nose into it, it spells disaster. Why? Not because the government are a bunch of fools. They are simply working for the different set of people. They're not working for the citizens. They're not working for you and I. They're working for the big banks. And we can see that in their campaign contributions. It's transparent. We can see it right with our very eyes. So onto this article, image here, showing you what's happening with aluminum. We saw what's happening with copper recently, but now aluminum as well. Could this be the next copper? Could this be the next commodity to fall? And of course, if construction is down, if we are seeing a deflationary environment, if we're seeing an economic downturn, we're going to see certain metals that are going to come down. Copper obviously being one major one, but aluminum as well. And we are witnessing that at this time. It's too early to tell necessarily, but if it continues on this trend, we're going to have a big drop off here in aluminum prices, which obviously goes to show you as a real economic indicator where things are globally. And this right here is just what I want to show you about taxation, how it is always putting a burden on the people. They consider that the GDP increased 5%, if my memory serves me here, in the previous quarter for the US. And then you find out that it is in fact the most amount of spending increase was due to healthcare costs increasing. At the very bottom here, TurboTax, an online tax service, estimated that the average penalty for lacking health insurance in 2014 will be $300. And that goes to show you that, in fact, they said it would be $95 at the beginning. Now it's $300. So there you have a tripling in the amount that they were expecting to have to pay to be penalized for not having something that they may or may not want. So of course you're being force fed this. It is a tax that they are being forced to pay, and there's no way around that. You can see it right here for your very eyes. And this is one last thing, how I want to show you that the governments, the politicians, they are all an absolute failure. This right here, Paris March TV-wide shots reveal a different perspective on world leaders at the largest demonstration in France's history. And they said that they were uniting all together with the people, leading the pack, saying that we stand with you, we support freedom, we support all this and that. But you can see how fake it all is, and this shows you just one very small example of how they are not there to support us. They are not there to support the economy. They are simply working for the global elite, the world bankers, and all of those who control us. If you found this video informative, please give me a thumbs up, and don't forget to become an insider. The Insiders is where I give out all my best intel for free, and that is available at themoneygps.com. You scroll down to the bottom, fill in your email address, and you get occasional emails from me with good, short, concise info.